that who are actually celebrities. Another notion that we want to distinguish from the notion of digital human is deep fake. So we can see it's a totally different circle from what we call digital human, meaning that the production pipeline is totally different. Technology that is being used is totally different from digital human. And we will, of course, talk you into more details in the following parts. Everything's fine with Alvaro?
Ophelia is taking care of it. Be
Okay.
probably done soon.
So I will continue with the first part of the presentation. So in this presentation, we will talk you through 3 different observations of virtual human in the industry. We will try to give you the state of art of virtual human in the current industry. So for each observation, we're going to talk you about business opportunity, the technical challenge behind, and also the current and future solution. So the first observation that we have is virtual humans are populating our virtual worlds. What does it mean? It means that we have this business opportunity of the rise of digital human. Around 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, it's pretty difficult to say that we can easily produce a photorealistic digital human. But now the technology is changing each and every day, and generally speaking, the development of CGI has considerably boosted for the last decades the quality and the availability of 3D assets. So we are now able to create photorealistic digital avatars that are indistinguishable from the real ones. So the example we can see in an image is called Saya. It's a digital child of Japanese studio TEOOH. So it is a virtual high school girl. You cannot actually distinguish this virtual girl from a real high school girl, right? It's so realistic. So the studio has been worked on it to improve the model for years. And the render is friscoable, and of course. So in game and VFX in particular, we're now having the technology and production pipeline to produce characters whom we can talk to and interact with in real time. So because real time is booming right now, among recent developments, there are advances in skin shading or realistic hair simulation available in the last Unreal Engine. Also released, they released this kind of haircuts. However, behind this business opportunity, we also have technical challenges, which is the cost of photorealism. It's pretty expensive for now to produce a highly realistic human. So even if the technology is available, creating a virtual human, a digital human, is still a challenge. So only very highly skilled 3D artists can take the challenge. The production pipelines are also very long and expensive. They're often based on 3D scanning technology, and a team of modelers create all the necessary assets, such as clothing, hairstyles, etc. And also, the human face is especially a challenge. For example, the micro expression, we can distinguish a real human from a fake human. And this is especially challenging for the 3D artists to produce. And also, you can, for example, look at your own skin, and also you can compare with the skin of the digital human. You can see the tiny little detail that can tell you the real ones from the fake ones. And also, when you see the faces of digital human, the eyes are especially a big challenge as well. You can easily tell from a dead eyes from a real eyes, or from the unrealistic dead look from a real human expression. And also, talking about realism, we also have to mention the notion uncanny valley, meaning that the human conscious is very detailed. So we can only achieve the highly realism when it comes through this uncanny valley point. However, in the current industry, we have some solutions, and also different researchers and artists, they are trying to tangle this technical challenge. So the solution we give here is how to procedurally generate virtual humans. So we are starting to see credible solutions to make virtual human creation easier and more accessible. So in terms of production, tools like texturing XYZ have helped studios to come up with realistic skin details without having to rely on accurate 3D scanning. So we are also seeing a rise in the popularity of character creation software like iClone or Days 3D, which has been used to create many successful virtual influencers. So the final step is the automatic generation of virtual humans. So how to use a single picture as a sole input to process a result for a few minutes with, for example, a single mobile photo or video. So when you see the example of Avatar SDK in the image that we are showing, you can try on Unity. There are also a lot of other kind of solutions such as Print Green or Wolf 3D, who will be presenting also in Laval Virtual. So the promise is that we can take more than a month of work rather than 5 years of work to create a photorealistic digital human. So we can procedurally generate more and more realistic virtual human now and even more in the future. So the second part, we're going to talk about humanizing virtual experience. Can you take the next step?
Yes. Can you first confirm that everyone can hear me and that technical problems have been solved?
Can everybody hear him?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay, that's perfect.
Can everybody see the screen? I think some of you are still having issues, right? Or is it good?
Clicking on the refresh button on the top corner helps with that.
Okay. If those who have issues, could you please click on the refresh button? And do you see a slide that has humanizing virtual experiences? If somebody doesn't see it, please tell me. We'll try to figure it out.
I have an internal server error in the middle screen.
Okay, can you please try pressing on the refresh button once again? And see if it works better.
All right. Is it good now?
Is it better?
Yeah.
Yes, now I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So let's continue. Sorry for the technical issues.
All right. Thanks. Let's continue. I'll just let someone else handle the presentation if possible. I don't want to jinx it. So hello, everyone. Sorry for these technical issues. So moving on. Now we're going to see how we can humanize the virtual experiences thanks to virtual humans who can generate empathy, which is a very important factor in this case. So first, let's take a look at the business opportunity. Can we see the next slide? Thanks. So the first idea is that we can leverage empathy, and there have been multiple studies that have highlighted the importance of empathy and nonverbal communication in our perception. We can see how we can improve focus through immersion, how we can give a positive outlook on a certain message, how we can add a nuance to what is being said. And more generally speaking, the potential of empathy that virtual humans can generate can lead to 3 different kinds of opportunities. So the first one is that we can introduce human empathy in areas where it was lacking. You can think automated experiences like FAQs or surveys, for example. The second level is that we can scale other areas where the human element is essential, like think HR, for example. You can use one virtual human to speak to thousands of users. And the third element is that beyond that, empathetic virtual beings can provide us with another level of social and entertainment format. For example, in the case of Fable Studio, a video game and virtual being studio, their virtual character is key to the story and is capable of building an emotional relationship with the user through AI. And they convey this empathy. By remembering the conversations and incorporating that information into future discussions with the player. And what if you could interact with a simulated person to learn from them or to practice management techniques, for example? And the example you see on screen is the US-based startup Tailspin, who uses virtual humans in VR to teach people soft management skills, like including how to encourage team members or how to fire someone with empathy and compassion. So moving on to the technical challenges, the main technical challenge here is achieving expressiveness, because empathy is based on the perception of life, right? And that means that a single and movable portrait can't really do the trick. To provoke this empathetic response, a virtual being has to be animated to display lifelike movements. And the first issue here is that animation is still very, very expensive, very time consuming. You will usually find numbers like 5K for a minute of realistic animation. And it has gone down, but not too much. And human facial animation in particular it's just like the holy grail of photorealism in terms of rarity and difficulty. Our faces can move in every direction, can display nuanced micro expressions or very complex objects. And additionally, human faces are the first things that we look at. They're the main point of focus in a conversation. And that makes every single one of us an expert, basically, in expressiveness. So even if you're unable to pinpoint what exactly is wrong in a facial animation, you know that something is amiss, which is why convincing human faces are so hard to pull off. And what you're seeing here on screen is a demo by a digital domain called Digital Dog. And you can watch how the skin, well, if you can, maybe this image is too small, but how the skin wrinkles as the whole face moves from the brows to the cheeks to the chin. And all of that combines to create a believable expression. And that is a lot of work, and that comes from an industry powerhouse. And the solution here is the democratization of 3D animation. So first of all, video animation is not always necessary for this. It's not always necessary to create empathy. Depends on the media. For example, if you take virtual influencers, they're making use of very simple rigs by existing mostly in static format on Instagram, right? And on the other hand, 3D animation is quickly becoming more and more affordable with the release of facial animation solutions based on computer vision research. And those can include software that uses simple webcams or even mobile phones. It includes as well mocap libraries, so you don't have to do your mocap yourself, or motion tracking using VR tech like HTC Vive trackers. And in this example on screen, I suggest you to take a good look at it. If you can, we can send you the video link later. The indie game dev Corey Strasburger created a facial capture rig with just an iPhone and a paintball helmet, and it works extremely well, and he won a prize at SIGGRAPH, basically. And so we can see that the field is being divided into two. On one hand, you have accessible, quick, though imperfect solutions, and on the other hand, you have impressive facial rigs, sometimes powered by machine learning, just like what we saw earlier with Digital Domain and Digital Dog. So moving on, what virtual humans can do as well is revolutionizing human-machine interactions. And this comes with the first business opportunity, which is the scaling of virtual humans. Because virtual humans give us the ability to populate virtual worlds with human beings. And that in turn enables how new forms of humans to machine interactions, and that replaces traditional interactivity with more natural ways to communicate with software. So human contact, dialogue, nonverbal communications are to us the most natural way in which we interact with our surroundings, right? Day-to-day basis. And this is something that we'll soon be able to replicate in virtual experiences. This implies breakthroughs in terms of accessibility as well as a general revolution of the customer experience, as users will be able to interact with each other and with characters in the most natural way. And this is what brings us one step closer to the metaverse as well. A good example is the Canadian startup 20 billion neurons, built a synthetic cells associated to cheerfully interact with customers and convince them to spend more money. And the example on screen that you're seeing is the virtual assistant Amelia by IPsoft, who is here working as an HR coordinator and work 24/7 and handle thousands of employees by herself. What you see is actually the UI that comes with their digital workforce solution, which is supposedly already available and working. So moving on, the technical challenge is the struggle of integration, however, because having a fully animated virtual human is often not the end of the journey. The biggest challenge lies ahead, and that's integration. Producing linear content in the form of a definitive video or image output is easy enough in comparison to the articulation of an interactive experience with a virtual human. And this difficulty comes from both from a technical and from psychological reasons. So first, on a technical level, we're talking about interfacing one of the most complex kinds of 3D assets with an engine, and that's a long process that will either rely on a certain level of AI, which that's a tough nut to crack by itself, or on a complex and comprehensive Boolean rule set with all the issues that come with the complex animation sequences in engine, right? On a psychological level, users expect a certain degree of responsiveness that is similar to what you would have in a conversation. That's all the while exposing the character to a number of unpredictable questions and behaviors from the user. So in short, very high expectations for a very technically challenging project. And so the solution here lies within the future of game engines. So the two major game engines, that is Unreal and Unity, have both acknowledged both the potential of virtual humans as well as the various challenges that are lying in the way of their democratization. We can move on to the next slide. So we can expect to see a growing support of the tech, and Unreal itself, for example, has already stepped in that direction with the development of its digital human shading. If anyone here has the Unreal Engine, you can download the Meet Mike demo, digital human demo, which has everything set up so that you can take a look at what human shading looks like in Unreal. Epic Games has also acquired 3Lateral and Cubic Motion both are leading facial animation, world-class leading facial animation and digital human companies. And that is likely to boost the digital human capacities of the Unreal Engine, though we don't exactly know yet what they're going to do with these acquisitions. And the image that you're seeing here is actually from a demo from Unity. And that's a short film that's called The Heretic. And that's displaying how their engine can create more than games with a virtual human, with an actor, virtual actor, can create more than games, as both companies are reaching for new areas like virtual production. And so we know that in the next few years, the creations of virtual human experiences will be more and more streamlined by the engines themselves. And so we can move to the next slide, and I'll let Yingzi take.
So yeah, thank you, Alvaro. So during the previous presentation, we actually walked you through 3 key observations of the state of art. But what is the next frontier of virtual human? So of course, as we know, virtual human is never a standalone idea. You cannot just put one human there. It is combining always with different other elements. We can have diverse possibilities and potentials in terms of business model and social relationship by combining these different elements. So for example, if we take the latest technology of deepfake, we can see that we can generate a lot of different human assets within a click. So for example, Samsung's technology, as we see in the image, had produced Neon, which is a computationally created virtual being that looks and behaves like a virtual human. A lot of people thought it's part of digital human, but actually the technology behind is really different. It is using the technology of deepfake rather than actually a 3D asset. And also, deepfake technology is being democratized, meaning that even grassroots creators are able to create content very easily. So even if the technology has a bad reputation because of the previous misconduct, we can expect in the future that with the effort from tech giants like Google, we can tackle the challenge and then we can better use the technology. And also, GANs, meaning generative adversarial network, allows also normal users to generate diverse and unique virtual avatars. But this also brings us another challenge, which is the challenge of legal framework. Who actually owns the automatically generated human assets? So those are the questions that our industry should take importance and also to tangle together. And also, you are going to see in the following presentation the use of blockchain within virtual human or virtual asset. I wouldn't spoil more details with you, but of course, the digital goods and services are exchanged and decentralized within this technology. And also, we are revolutionizing every day with the latest research. So everybody can easily have a personal avatar that are at the same time accessible and affordable in the near future. So hopefully we can generate photorealistic and accurate 3D avatar thanks to a single selfie later in the future. So just a small recap of this presentation. We went through the state of art of virtual human. We distinguished kind of the key notions that we observe in the industry. And we firmly believe that people who are interested in virtual influencers, real-time rendering, and virtual social space or virtual humans, we all share the common space and we can greatly benefit from each one another. We can work on this topic together to have more and more possibilities. So feel free to contact us, to send us an email, or to check out our platform called virtuals.co, and stay in touch. Yeah, see you guys.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. So we just have a couple of minutes to answer your questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll call your name and then you can ask it. Thank you. And thank you guys for your wonderful presentation. Does anybody have any questions or something to ask? Just raise your hand. You can just click on the button that says raise your hand on the middle side of the bottom of your Virabella screen. Yes, Kaspar, please tell us, what would you like to ask?
Guys, thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. You both mentioned that there are some limitations that AI avatars have to achieve empathy. How do you think we can overcome those challenges? Like, what are the things that we can do as a companies working in that space and as an industry as a whole?
So I think the sound wasn't very high, but if I can rephrase the question to be sure that I understand, you mean that the limitations of AI and how we can overcome these limitations right now. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. So my opinion regarding AI is that deep learning, being a very focused, very module based, that deep learning is really good to perform a specific task, whereas a human being is very much full of analyzing concepts, very complex concepts, and approaching a certain concept from very many angles. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, to completely replicate the human mind as a virtual character. So I think that we will have to be reliant in some way to other techniques, which is why I mentioned, for example, a Boolean approach with just a script of sequences. You know, what if user does this, I reply that, and adding also an element of randomness. I think that in a way it's like we have been doing with digital humans up until this point. 3D is a lot about cheating. That is, not everything is simulated because simulation is expensive. Simulating everything would be extremely expensive, extremely difficult. So a lot of it is cheating. That is showing you details that are not actually details, but just painted on an image, right? It's like tricking the user into thinking that there's more detail than it actually that there actually is. So I think that as far as the behavior of the virtual humans go, a lot of it will come from tricking that. But if you're talking about AI in terms of producing virtual humans, that is actually very, very promising. I think that very quickly we'll be able to have very good results already. If you look at papers that are being published right now, the results that people are getting with deep learning in terms of output of creating a digital human from scratch, creating a virtual human model are really, really good already.
Yeah, so I totally agree what Alvaro just said. And also from my point of view, there are two levels in terms of business. So we need virtual humans that are empathetic in, for example, services like HR or training. But also we need new entertainment format in terms of virtual human in storytelling and social interaction. So I think the service level is more pragmatic and it's in the near future. And there's still a pretty long way to go in terms of storytelling. So how to make empathetic your virtual friend or your virtual idol or different other parts of entertainment industry. So that is my take in terms of business opportunities.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Unfortunately, we have to move on to the next presentation. Thank you for answering everything and for your participation. The next presentation will be by Sébastien BORGET. Could he please come to?
Yeah, hello everyone. All right. Can you see? Can everyone see and hear me all right?
Yes, everything fine.
Amazing. Okay, all right. So, well, everyone, hello, my name is Sébastien BORGET. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Sandbox. I'm really happy to be here with you today for the first time within a 3D virtual world with so many virtual avatars in front of me. And it's quite amazing to see there's over 1,000 users in this virtual world. So I hope this will pave the way for more events happening in the virtual world and potentially within the Sandbox platform, the Sandbox gaming platform as well when we launch it. So to give you some background about myself quickly, as I mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sandbox. Sandbox is a decentralized virtual world where players and creators can make 3D voxel-based, so sort of 3D pixel assets and games and monetize them through the use of blockchain technology, essentially non-fungible tokens and cryptocurrency. I will go further in detail about this later in my presentation. I'm also the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance, which is a non-profit organization that regroups over 100 members companies that are involved into promoting the adoption of blockchain technology within the video game industry. And I've been an entrepreneur for almost 12 years. This is my fourth company. The three previous one have been all acquired. I've been working in peer-to-peer technology, in online media streaming, and in video gaming before. So without further ado, let's jump up once. Whoa. Yep. Just checking slides update. Yeah, cool. So what we are building with the Sandbox is the first user-generated content virtual world that is running on a blockchain. This blockchain is Ethereum. We are in the space of user-generated content. There is over 500 billion, half a billion creators worldwide, essentially on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, but as well within 3D virtual worlds like Minecraft and Roblox, which are both games that have been growing over this last decade up to 100 million monthly active users. One of the main challenges and culprits is actually anything that the user spends literally hours or days in creating on those platforms is actually not truly theirs. If I create a game or I create a character, a virtual character within Minecraft or Roblox, I publish it on their platform, but I actually do not own that creation. I cannot, for example, transfer it to another user. I cannot exchange it with other users. I cannot monetize it exactly the way I want because those platforms are acting as centralized walled garden where a central entity has the control and define the rule of who the possibility of transferring the asset from one user to another, the possibility of selling those assets or not within the main platform or outside of it, and what can be done with these assets ultimately. So we think that with the use of blockchain technology, we're able to disrupt those companies and their business model by having a more decentralized approach, permissionless, to what the users who contribute the content and hence the value in those platforms can do. In short, we are building what we call the metaverse, which is a combination of online virtual world platform where the content, the characters, the avatars, the game can potentially be transferable from one platform to another, together belonging to the users. On Sandbox platform, users will be able to create games, to trade all the items of this game, both inside the platform, but also outside of the platform, to socialize and meet new friends, interact with them, chat using their avatars, to own land, so digital parcels that constitute the world, publish their game, their creation, their experience on top of their land, and potentially start monetizing those lands as virtual businesses where they can actually rent them to other creators, they can organize events, they can resell those as packages, etc., and be involved into this new business model that we believe will replace free-to-play over the next decade, which is play-to-earn, where every participant has the possibility to monetize his skills and his time on the platform. Giving you a little more background about our company, so we are leveraging an existing franchise called the Sandbox. It exists on mobile platform, iOS and Android, since 2012. So initially, it is a 2D single-player mobile game where you can make a 2D world in retro style, where you put your character and you play with 500 elements, and you publish those creations to an online gallery in a fully centralized manner. It's been a huge success. We've had over 40 million downloads in total, millions of active users, 70 million user-generated content creation made by the community, has been named Best Game of the Year by Apple and Google in 2012 and 13. So this is a franchise that is already existing, and we are taking to the next level by launching a sequel, which this time will be in 3D, multiplayer, and multi-platform. This sequel, we have already partnered with many companies to help us build this vision of the metaverse and contribute in content. Among those companies, so there's probably many you're not so much familiar with, because several are actual actors within the blockchain ecosystem. But probably if I tell you Shaun the Sheep as a brand, or Atari, the video gaming giant, are names that should ring a bell. And among those, we also have Square Enix, the major video game company from Japan that has Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy as our seed round investors. So those companies are going to build virtual games on our platform where users can interact, own their item, play with their favorite character, own their avatar, travel this virtual world with this avatar across it, and interact through game. This is an example of how this social interaction can happen. So you own your avatar, you will be able to customize it. I'll speak a bit more on that right after. And with your avatar in this 3D world that is very much in voxel, so sort of those blocks, sort of digital Legos, you're able to come, chat with others, interact, socialize, just like in this virtual world, but there's an additional logic on top of it, which is you can play with them. So you can collaborate in gaming or you can compete in gaming. For example, in the Atari virtual world, you'll be able to participate in virtual rides or play the retro game, now turned 3D, of Asteroids, Pong, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Super Breakout, and more. This is another example where we are leveraging a brand to make it more mainstream to the great public with Shaun the Sheep. Shaun the Sheep is a popular cartoon from the UK by Aardman, and we are creating a virtual world with the farm and the characters. And the beauty of user-generated content is that you can create your own stories and games with those characters. So you're not limited only to one experience made by the IP holder here, but you'll be able to purchase those characters from the IP, own them truly through the use of blockchain, and incorporate them inside game experience that you design, that are yours, and then you can monetize the way you want. How are we achieving this? How are we giving more controls in our virtual world to the creators, the players, the users, and allowing them to be aligned with our interests as developer and be rewarded for their participation? We have three main components. The first one is called VoxEdit. It's a standalone desktop software for PC and Mac, which allows you to make voxel model and animate them. It's already quite popular. We have over 100,000 downloads of this software as of today. And it is the only free software on the market where you can animate those models. Also, it's not proprietary, so we make it open to the ecosystem where you can export your creation to any other software, Unity, 3D Studio Max, or even Minecraft. So we use it as a gateway to a platform, but we didn't want to make it proprietary control software because we embrace this idea of being decentralized and open. The second component is a marketplace where the users can upload their creation and start trading them, selling them, monetizing them in the form of non-fungible tokens. And the last component is a game maker, which provides the utility for this game asset by enabling game creators to place those models inside game. Those models come with pre-made behaviors, so you don't have to code anything to start enjoying and playing around. And you can also acquire elements for your avatar to improve it along the way. So yes, VoxEdit I already mentioned. This marketplace is quite interesting. It's already live on our website, so you can see a lot of those user-generated content 3D models. And what's unique also through the use of blockchain is we can define the rarity and the scarcity of the element. And by having the scarcity, so for example, here there's only 60 copies of this voxel deer, we can make sure that there will be never any more available. So both the users and the developer have this proven scarcity where which allows to increase potentially the value of the item because there's not an infinite supply of all those. Whereas traditionally in PC or mobile game, as soon as you always have this purchase button and there's no limited, or there's no way to actually track and trust the companies that define the scarcity because it's not a public database like the blockchain, it's a private one. So it's been an issue for years within MMORPG where users think they purchase something that is collector, that is limited, but don't really have the visibility of that. And because it's on the blockchain, they can trade. So the first copy can be tracked. Who owns the copy also makes it valuable. And as such, every digital item can accrue in value, not only for its utility or its scarcity, but also based on the provability of who owned it before or what it achieved in a game. So the use of blockchain within the virtual world, we believe, and within this metaverse, is the necessary layer so we can have this fourth industrial revolution where all the content, all the digital content can be appropriately valued and transferred between users in a fair, transparent, and provable way. As part of our game, of our platform, we also have this game maker. So this is a most recent screenshot. The idea for us is to make it as accessible as possible to everyone using this no coding approach where you just drag and drop entities and you can make games with it. So what's amazing is we already have creators, a dozen creators working with us while the product is still in alpha and not yet launched. And they've made experience that I'll show you after, which I believe are amazing. This is a teaser of our platform where you can create, play, earn, and explore worlds. This is VoxEdit in action. After you made those models, you can use to play them either alone or with your friends inside the virtual world. You can resell them on the marketplace, earn sand or cryptocurrency on the platform, and use this sand to resell it and buy more content to improve your game. To also buy lands where you publish your game experience and participate in the governance of the platform. You can explore the lands from other players and find a resource that you can trade with other players. So it looks like the video is a bit laggy. All right. What's also unique in our virtual world is that there is a limited number of lands. And this number of lands, a total of 166, 464, is tracked on the blockchain. So there will never be any one single more. And that makes those digital land quite valuable. You can compare it like to a Steam store and an app store where instead of having always new games popping up and an unlimited number of games, in the end, you have this limited number. So the position of your game on the map and the fact that you are among the first to join the virtual world and build your game also matter. The total value of this land is approximately $22 million. And to give you an idea of how popular this idea of owning your land, being able to create a business, etc. is, we have run 3 pre-sale of land until today without the game being live. The last one was on March 31st, and this was this 2D map you can see, featuring Atari as one of our gaming partners, Roller Coaster, Tycoon, Pong, and other key partners I mentioned before. We sold out within 5 hours those 10,000 parcels of land for the equivalent of $450,000. So there's thousands of people who are ready to buy digital land in a game platform ahead of the launch of the platform because they also believe this shared vision we have on building a metaverse, making it decentralized, offering ownership to the creators and the player. And I'm really excited about what we are building here because it's just the beginning. Now, show you a little bit the game, because at the end of the day, we are a social MMO virtual world gaming platform. With your avatar, your character, you can play games. Those games can be RPG-like, first-person shooter, platformer, runner. You as a creator will have the liberty to define it. But what is interesting is with your virtual self, this avatar that is in sort of like voxel, so with this voxel representation of your avatar, you can decide the type of experience that you can do in the metaverse, whether you play alone, whether you play with or against other players, and how you can earn from this activity. So here's another video that we are showing for the first time, showcasing a little bit an example of experience. So as you can see, it looks like and feels like a regular game. At the end of the day, the players should not feel that the user experience is different from a traditional game. That's, we believe, how the adoption will come. But the beauty is like every content is actually made by users and owned by a user who actually sold it on the marketplace and monetize it. All right. So together you will be able to explore those hundreds of thousands of game experience made by creators and play all sorts of gameplays, collect resources, use this resource to trade. So there's a circular economy that's taking place between players, creators, artists who make the content, and even more roles at the platform level, like curators, etc. I don't know if I have enough time. I have a second video to show you some examples made by another creator, if you want to load. Yeah. Cool. No. On this video, one of our creators made 4 different islands on the topic of Pirate Island. And as you can see, there's already an amazing field of opportunity in terms of like all the creation, the landscape, just the terraforming of the landscape, but then after bringing the gameplay mechanics with all those avatars inside the world, is creating thousands or millions of opportunities. Oh, well, let's move to, yes. And because it's the metaverse and it's multiplayer, it has to be immersive, deeply immersive game experience. So when you're not playing game, either with or against other players, you need to have a place where you'll just hang out and chat with your friends. And that's why we're also working on mechanics where you can just be in lobbies, talk with other players, play simple sort of quiz game, trivia game, or have meaningful activities that you can do without necessarily being a player. All the content is made by users, as I was mentioning. And one key element to this user experience is it's all player-centric. So the first step to enter the virtual world of the metaverse of Sandbox is to actually create your avatar. The avatar customization, which I believe is something quite interesting, is because of this voxel representation, you can think it's a large limited. How can I create a virtual self that looks like me with such a low definition, so few blocks? Well, I have this take, like on the contrary, the more limitation, I would say, the framework, the more limited the framework is, the more creative people can get behind to overcome those limitations of this framework. So by having 14 different body parts that can be customized, the face, the different outfits and headset, and changing the t-shirts logo here, like you can see, you can already start creating thousands of variants of your players. You can think of it just like the Lego figurine. How simple those are. There's only 3 body parts, the head, the body, the bottom. And still we can see literally millions of variants of those Lego figurines, and they have been hugely popular. So that's one thing I believe is essential. With this avatar, you can pull and you keep that same character to play across all those thousands of game experience. But you don't necessarily need to just be yourself. This is what's beautiful in gaming, and what's happening the most is like you have this second virtual digital identity where you can be totally someone else and change. And even if you decide not to be a human, but more like a droid, a robot, an elf, whatever, you will also be able to do it. And this character being yours on the blockchain, you can potentially, if other game developers implement the support through the interoperability of the blockchain, you can use that same character also outside of Sandbox platform, which is, I think, something new and never seen before in gaming. Let's jump into blockchain gaming. I've been mentioning it already a few times, so I'll try to be as simple as possible in my explanation, and if there's more questions, I'll try to answer them in the Q&A. So probably most of you are already familiar with cryptocurrency, at least Bitcoin and Ethereum. Those are fungible tokens because any Bitcoin is the same as another Bitcoin. They are uniform, they can be divisible, so you can have 1 or 0.00001 Bitcoin, and you can use it as a payment. With non-fungible tokens, I would say it's the opposite. Each token is unique and indivisible. You cannot interchange a gold sword for a silver sword. You cannot have a silver sword divided. It's either 1, 0, or many, but it cannot be 0.001 of. And the main benefit, so you can compare it as sort of like limited edition postal stamps. They are unique with rarity, they are secure and immutable, and they can be used across many games because they are not within a single centralized database of a private company. And what are the benefits of blockchain for gamers and users? The 4 main benefits are the true digital ownership. So you, as a user, truly own this item. It is in your wallet. The proof of scarcity, which helps to define and help. Then now we have digital collectible with provable scarcity, which helps to create value. The potential cross-application interoperability, where I can take my character, my avatar, and I can play with it across several games from different developers supporting the technology. And the capacity to monetize through trading of the assets on marketplaces. Not only the developer marketplace, but essentially secondary marketplace, sort of virtual eBays where you can sell your sword, your character, and receive by either fiat or cryptocurrency payments. So what has been done for years in black and gray market, where users of World of Warcraft were trying to sell their level 100 characters, and there's been players in China that were farming those characters. We are making it a fully transparent business, no shady, and open to and we are embracing this idea as a game developers that our users can actually trade and exchange the content, because we believe it at the end of the day it creates more value for everyone. It makes the user more engaged. It opens new business opportunity for both us as developer, but also our user. And this is, I think,
Sébastien, I'm very sorry, but we're already 6 minutes behind.
And that's it.
I'm so sorry to cut your presentation.
No.
Thank you so much.
So thank you everyone for your attention. I hope I gave you a good overview overall of what we are building in the metaverse with our virtual world and how blockchain technology is involved in this and can benefit users.
I'm very sorry, but unfortunately, we don't have any time to take any questions. But please feel free to ask your questions in the public chat, or maybe you can even message directly Sébastien if he's not against it. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And I will let Kaspar talk and present the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sébastien.
Thank you, everyone.
If anyone has any questions to Sébastien, he will be also joining a panel afterwards. So feel free to join the panel as well where Sébastien is. But as his next speaker, we have Timmu TOKE. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Wolf3D. And in 2019, he was named Forbes 30 under 30. Wolf3D is creating personal 3D avatars of people for games and AR, VR using a selfie. And their goal is to provide this persistent identity for virtual worlds. So Timmu, please come to the stage and share your experience.
I'm here, Kaspar. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So thank you for the introduction. Gladly, Kaspar is my co-founder, so he knows exactly what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, so we're Wolf3D. We create avatars of people, as Kaspar mentioned. We see that currently online communication happens mostly through video calls like Zoom, as we all know, sitting at our homes right now. Or this is like a special case, or just traditional social media messaging. We believe that that's about to change. We believe that the future of online communication is in virtual worlds. When I grew up in Estonia, I used to play basketball, and basketball court was kind of a place where I would hang out with my friends and spend time together. You play the game, but mostly you're just kind of hanging around and socializing. When I look at my nephew, who is like 14 today, then he spends most of his time in Roblox, in Fortnite. That is the way that kids hang out and socialize these days. So the physical hangout space that we had is moving into the virtual world. And the numbers speak for themselves. When you look at the usage of Roblox in the US, which is kind of a social virtual world, then kids spend more time in Roblox than they spend in traditional social media. Actually, even more time than in YouTube, Netflix, and Facebook combined. So that shows us how much this shift is already happening, and how much the new generation is basically a virtual world native, and they're used to communicating with each other in games more than in traditional social media. And the question we ask as this shift is happening is how are we going to represent our identities in this new social virtual world? And of course, it's through avatars. Now that brings two different kind of problems that need to be solved. First, the current avatars we have in the virtual world are generic. As you see, all major avatars to come here. It is a version of yourself. Perhaps you could customize the hair and clothing. In games, you can perhaps buy assets for the avatar, which people are doing a lot of. In Fortnite, people spend $2.4 billion a year in 1 year, just to buy virtual assets for their avatar. So that is already a huge market, and that number kind of shows us how much people value their virtual identities. And we think it's obvious that when games become more like social platforms, we're going to need to have our real life identities in the virtual world as well. So that's the first problem, bringing our real identities into games, into virtual worlds. And that is a problem that no one's been able to solve so far. And I'll come to the second problem and after that. So I'll kind of give you an overview of the last 5 years of how we have solved the first problem in different iterations of the product, and what we plan to do about the second point, which is transferring your avatar between different kinds of games and virtual experiences. All right. So we started off actually more than 5 years ago by building a scanning studio. So we had this full body 3D scanner, 50 or 65 cameras actually, and we would make a full body scan of a person. And we did it as a service for games and so forth. Now, as we were doing this, a company called Oculus was bought by Facebook. So we realized that, okay, Facebook is putting a lot of money in that, so VR is really happening, and obviously Facebook is a social company, so VR is going to be social. And when you think about it, then in every VR social experience, like what's the core key element of that is an avatar. That's where you kind of speak with, right? So we decided that we are going to build a solution to make kind of consumer avatars of anyone in the world for VR. Just easy to use kind of solution. So going from the studio, the next step we made was to build this giant egg. So it was basically a 3D scanner. We used it's like a 3D scanning photo booth, if you will. We had them in airports, we had them in like events, museums and places like that. You go in, you push a button, and you get a 3D scan of the face. We scanned like more than 10,000 people with them around the world. And that's basically just to collect data and just to kind of make the studio scanning a lot easier than it was before. So this was the kind of first product towards the consumer. After doing that for a while and scanning more than 10,000 people, we built the next product, which was a scanning app. So we were convinced that the best way to represent a person in the virtual world is as a realistic avatar. Like we all want to be exactly what we are in the real world, in the virtual world as well. So that was what we did with the hardware. That's what we did with the scanning app. So we had like 15 photos of a person. We generated a scan of that, and then trying to make a very accurate replication. So that's an avatar of me, for example. So what we learned doing that is, wow, people don't want to be exactly like themselves. You want to be a better version of yourself. You want to be more beautiful, younger, taller, whatever. So that's, looking back, it's not very surprising, but we learned, yes, that people don't want to be themselves. They want to be a version of themselves. You want something that you can recognize as yourself, but only the good parts. So I think it's kind of similar to how we create our social media profiles. You don't create the one-on-one version of your life, you create a curated version. And we see that people want to do it with avatars as well. So after several years of different products, we came to the product we have right now, which is, the goal is to create avatars in different styles, to create avatars that you can actually love and recognize at the same time. That you want to be kind of proudly represent. You want to proudly represent yourself as this avatar in virtual worlds. So we launched this product about a year ago. It works using just a single selfie. So we take one photo, we convert it into all kinds of different styles of avatars. Excuse me. So we can work with any kind of games, like even, sandbox kind of games with voxel avatars to, actually realistic as well. So just 5 seconds to generate the avatar on any device. It works on all game engines, all platforms, super easy to use. Here's some more pictures of the avatars. Since launching the product, we have now signed deals with several of the top 5 gaming companies in the world. From VR, we're working with HTC, for example, on their new VR enterprise platform. So basically kind of proven that the technology works, and also that companies are willing to integrate that and pay for it. And we basically provided it so far as an SDK that the companies integrate. Just a little bit about how we do it. Basically, the answer is a giant fucking database. So we have scanned actually 25,000 people in total, 10,000 with the hardware and 15,000 with phones. And that is the core of how we create avatars. So basically, we have a deep learning solution that, the training data is the scanned and images of people. So first we create a regular realistic avatar, and then we have a stylization system, which is kind of, you can think of them like Instagram filters that you apply on the realistic avatar, and then we get any style we want. Now, that all is cool. And that is just the first part of the problem that I mentioned in the beginning, which is creating creating personal avatars for virtual worlds. And that's what we've been focusing on for the last 5 years and many different iterations. We believe now we have something that is good. It's really scalable, it's really easy to use, and we've proven that the gaming industry and the VR industry needs it and is willing to kind of pay for it. Now, your virtual avatar between different games and different virtual experiences. So to achieve that, we're building our next product, which is an avatar platform. Why we think it's important? We don't think it makes sense for you to create a new avatar every time you go into a new virtual world. Like you come to this event, you have to create an avatar from scratch. Now maybe next week you go to another event that has another platform, and you have to create the new avatar again. And then you play a game with your friend or 3 different games, and you get the point. So avatar is your social identity, so it needs to be consistent, and you need to be able to bring it from one game to another to just make it a smooth and a logical experience. So for the user, our goal is to create a standard identity you can bring from one game to another. So yeah, persistent identities, that is the goal, right? How I achieve that is by basically building an avatar platform. So we provide games and VR companies a full avatar system that includes a personal avatar and also the entire body, customization assets and everything that comes with it. So basically, we don't charge for the avatar system itself. We just give it out to you to games. So if you're interested in that, just find me later or write us an email, whatever. Basically, we give you a full avatar system. You don't have to spend any time on building it yourself. And we have revenue share from the assets that are sold around the avatar. So basically, we create assets. In the future, we'll also work with the content creator community, which is users themselves that create those shirts and assets around the avatar. It's also brands big fashion brands and all kinds of licensed content. There's some music bands that are interested in being a part of the platform and so forth. So basically, from one side, making the avatar supported in as many games as possible, and from the other side, working with the best content creators on the planet to get everyone the avatars they want. Iterations of the platform looks like that. It's actually a web-based avatar creator. So basically, you can integrate it into any game engine or any kind of app, VR, mobile, doesn't matter. You push a button, we launch the web-based avatar creator. The user creates an avatar there and pushes a button and they're back in the game and continue playing without having to leave the app itself. So that's what we're building right now. We are actually coming out with the first integration on the 1st of May, so that's very soon. And we have about 10 companies now signed with the platform already. But yeah, still very fresh. As I mentioned before, it's free to join. We don't charge for the avatar system itself, but we have revenue share from the assets sold, and that's going to be like that forever. Yeah, and our long-term goal is to create an identity that users can bring with them into any game they go. One side, as I mentioned, creating the best content possible by working with the content library community, and from the other side, making the avatars usable in as many experiences as possible. And meanwhile, providing games with the best personal avatar technology and everything around that you need for creating the perfect experiences. We believe that the future of virtual worlds is going to be fragmented. You're going to have a lot of smaller kind of experiences where you go, depending on what you want to do, small games you play, events, and so forth. And that's why kind of a cross-platform identity, provider needs to exist. And it needs to be kind of a third-party company, not one of the big players like Epic Games themselves. So that's what we're intending to achieve here. And last but not least, a shout out for the team. Some of you are here as well. So everything is made possible by the team, and everyone's grinding hard, and it's just great. We're about 20 people. Yeah, Sarge in the middle. We're about 20 people, mostly based in Estonia. Artists, data scientists, and business people and everything. Yeah, so that's cool. We're both 3D. Our goal is to create the next generation of online identities, avatars for virtual worlds. And happy to answer any questions you might have. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Sébastien. All right. Questions?
Do we have any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
All right.
Yeah, so congratulations on your avatar. Amazing.
Thank you.
Do you have a live example of how this could work?
Yeah. So if you just drop us an email, we can send you an app where you can try it out, and we can send you the new kind of platform link as well very soon, so you can create yourself an avatar.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like there's another hand up.
Geoffrey?
Yep, thanks for the talk. Just a quick question. I can see on your website that you have a partnership with Stanford and with the VH area. So what's the partnership?
Yeah, well, we basically created avatars for one of their research projects. Actually, Kaspar knows more about that than I do. But yeah, it's we created avatars for, I think, several different research projects that they did around avatars.
Oh, great, thanks.
Yeah, and obviously what they're doing is very interesting for us. You know, they're kind of researching exactly the most interesting parts of you know, virtual worlds and VR, kind of the social parts, which is I think amazing work they're doing.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your answer, and I agree. As I work in the same field, I did my postdoc, you know, in Barcelona with Mel Slater. Mel Slater, you know, is the other lab working on embodiment and VR, so that's why I'm asking a question.
Oh yeah, we should connect then.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Yeah, cool.
All right. Thank you, Timmu.
All right.
Okay, I think we have
one
last. We have time for one last question. There's
Daniel?
one hand up.
Yeah. Is it Daniel? I think we can't hear you. Or was it?
Sorry.
Whoever had the hand up there, yeah. Now I could hear you. Yeah? Okay. Well,
all right,
awesome, so thank you everyone for your time. And yeah, you can find us at both3d.io. The website is really fucking outdated, but you know, you get the main point. And you can contact us from there. And Timmu at both3d.io if you want to write me. So thank you everyone.
All right, thank you, Timmu. So as the next speaker, we have Don Stein. He is a managing director of a San Francisco-based venture fund, Candela Partners, and he's also a co-founder and CEO of a company called TEOOH. TEOOH is a platform for hosting virtual events, and you know, their goal is to become the easiest and most powerful way to engage global audience by allowing the communities to come together and interact the same way you do in the physical world, but without the hassle of traveling. So Don, please come to the stage and share more about how can we replace the need to pay for the plane tickets to attend events around the world and still do it in the comfort from our mobile phones.
So Kaspar, Don is not right here now because he has trouble with his connection. So maybe we can wait a bit, and if someone have some question, feel free to allow more questions for the past conferences.
All right, maybe we can move forward with the panel, and once the panel is over, Don can take the stage and a little bit talk about TEOOH. You can help him join the conference.
Join the panel if he wants, but let's wait like 5 minutes because Harriet is actually on the phone with him. So
okay, I see.
Let's hope that he is coming, but yes, if he's not, let's move with the panel.
All right. Maybe while we're waiting, we can see, who's in the audience. If someone's interested, sharing from the audience what is their interest in virtual worlds and how it's related to avatars, we can have this small conversation here while we're waiting for Don to join the conference. Any volunteers? Benjamin, you here on the right. Maybe you can let the audience know more about like what's your interest in virtual worlds and avatars. Share a little bit more about what are you doing. Anyone? Yes, if you want, yeah, there's a hand up.
Yeah, hi, my name is Daniel from Colombia.
Hey, Daniel.
Great, thanks for the opportunity. I've been working with VR since 2009. I have now a company that is called 3Go Video, and we do all type of things for VR projects, mostly on, well, term that is 360 video, but also we have done VR and simulation. And thank you for having us today.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, I see one. There's some hands up. Oh, it's still Daniel. Anyone else like to share more about what are they doing? What about you, Matthew? All right, there's a hand up there.
Hi. We're here. We are three of us of a French society called BORGET Virtuel, and we are a service company around virtual reality and augmented reality. And avatars are a central part of how we represent human in our virtual context. And we believe it will take a huge part in our future projects. So be glad to hear more about it today.
All right, thank you for sharing. So do we have anyone else here? Let us check with Don, and he's having troubles joining. Then we should move forward with the panel. Nicholas, would you love to share more about what you are doing? There's a hand up there. Can't see what's the name. Go ahead. Is it Ray? Ray, is your hand up? I think you have to unmute your mic.
How is that? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you perfect.
Okay, sorry. Too many mics hooked up to this. So I'm Ray Stevenson with a company in San Francisco area called Deep Motion, and we're creating AI and physics-based character motion solutions. So we're working on things like driving a physics simulated avatar that you can use with any VR system, from a Quest to a Vive, and get full body avatar simulated with physics, as well as other solutions like our motion brain that we're training with deep learning from a database of motion to be able to generate real-time physics-based motion for characters in virtual worlds. So I'd be interested in talking with anybody interested in real-time character motion for avatars and 3D virtual beings.
All right, maybe we should start with the panel. So when Don is back, then he can give his presentation afterwards. So yeah, I'd like to call the panelists to the stage then. Do you have Sébastien here?
Yeah, coming.
All right, guys, let's take a seat on those chairs. And we can take a seat
on this side.
Yeah, we can take this side as well. Okay. Alrighty, so this is a panel about virtual worlds and virtual avatars. You already heard some of the talks earlier from the panelists, but if somebody just recently joined, I'll also do a quick introductions here. So we have here on the panel, we have Sébastien. As you already saw, he's a man with many titles. He's a president of Blockchain Game Alliance. He's also a co-founder and CEO of the Sandbox. You a little bit already heard before about the Sandbox, which is a decentralized virtual world where you can build, create, monetize, gaming experiences on a Ethereum blockchain. They recently raised a 2 million round from Square Enix and also announced a partnership with Atari. And within 5 hours, they sold almost $500,000 worth of land in the virtual world. We also have Alvaro and Yingzi who are both the co-founders of the Virtuals. The Virtuals is an organization that tries to reflect upon the emerging visualization of the society and also share more about their experiences around virtual characters and virtual experience that are appearing in our everyday lives. They founded the company out of a common interest in the belief of virtualization in our society and the potential of virtual humans. Alvaro here previously worked as a head of marketing at Isco, which is a digital humans company, and Yingzi worked previously in entertainment holding company Vivendi, and she currently works in Ubisoft Strategic Innovation Lab. And finally, we have Cristian, who is the CEO and co-founder of MeetinVR. MeetinVR is one of the leading VR collaboration solutions for enterprise. They are working with many Fortune 500 companies, as well as education institutions such as Stanford University. He has worked over 4 years helping large corporations to work remotely, and just recently learned that they're opening up their solutions to everyone very, very soon. So we have great panelists here today with different backgrounds from different industries and having very different experiences with virtual worlds and avatars. But maybe we can start because we already mentioned some of the definitions like the metaverse, virtual world, and avatars. Maybe let's start by defining some of those definitions. What is a metaverse? What's a virtual world? And what is an avatar? Maybe let's start with Alvaro and Yingzi. You both are trying to define those definitions with the virtuals, and you're trying to educate the market and the general public about this. Can you share a little bit more about what does those terms mean to you?
Yeah, so thank you, Kaspar. So that's exactly the question me and Alvaro, we were asking ourselves from the beginning of foundation of virtuals. We tried a couple of different definitions. We want to call it the virtualization of our world, and we also want the general public to understand it better by calling it virtual experiences, including everything concerning virtual reality, virtual beings, and also virtual social interactions. So that is one topic from the beginning, right? So we also wrote an article trying to explain what exactly consists of a virtual experience. So maybe you can talk more around our way of thinking, Alvaro.
Yes. So basically thinking about, so one of the things that we're trying to do is also that in this area, there are a lot of terms being used as synonyms, basically. So we were talking about virtual humans, digital humans, virtual actors, digital doubles, etc., avatars, virtual beings. It can be very confusing. So we're trying to define what these terms mean, trying to make it more understandable. As far as, and the important thing to consider here is that virtual humans, for example, are one thing and avatars are another. Avatars is, I would say, a more abstract concept. It's basically your identity online, and your identity can be many things. One of the things that I encountered, for example, during my time at ISCO is that a lot of people working on digital humans or virtual human fields see photorealism as really the objective. But if you think about what people want to have as an avatar, and what people consider to be their representation and their identity, they might not want to be themselves. That is, they might not feel like, some people feel like their own physical appearance does not represent who they are, right? And so having an avatar goes beyond that, beyond just your physical appearance. It goes into who you want to be. Do you want to be a creature? Are you do you want to be an image? Or if you want to be yourself, what kind of version of yourself do you want to be? And this is very tricky because for example, you might be okay with yourself, but you might have certain problems with certain aspects of your own face. I don't know. I'm not judging. Or you want to be a stylized or cartoonish or fun version of yourself, and it also translates into how you interact with people, how you express yourself, your facial expressions, etc. So what I'm stressing here is that having an avatar is a complete, like, what is an avatar? What should be an avatar? Is an open discussion right now. And for example, Wolf 3D is one of the answers that are being provided, while at the same time, one of the things that I'm certain of is that we are entering in the era of avatars. That is, we are now in a time where it's important to have a representation of yourself, and a pseudonym or a simple image is not going to cut it. You will need to have something that truly represents yourself, that you can customize, you can choose. And this is what, this is the future, basically. This is what we're starting to see.
All right, thank you guys. So Sébastien, your company is building the next metaverse, right? Why does the metaverse and virtual avatars even matter today?
Yes, well, maybe I'll start with defining what we believe the metaverse is. And I'm not sure if we should talk about like a single metaverse or more like a series of metaverse, just like we talk about the internet, but there's multiple layers of that internet. So at the Sandbox, we are building a blockchain-based decentralized metaverse. It's a series of virtual worlds that are actually crafted, built, played, shared, and owned through their asset and experience by the players. So we are really empowering the creators to take participation, build, own, and control this virtual world, participating into its governance, and being incentivized to contribute to it continuously. Through, for example, the play to earn mechanism, where for each action they perform or each the time they contribute to it can be rewarded by the platform, but also at the game level. So for us, one essential element of building this metaverse is indeed the true full ownership, the copyright security that is the underlying layer that defines this virtual world and makes possible to have a trusted environment where all the parties involved can actually begin transacting through gameplay, transacting through the exchange of content on the virtual world, meaning that we are finally able to have a replication of the physical world where I can buy a book, I can buy a CD, a DVD, I can buy a house, and I can sell it to another person in in a mostly secure environment, and I can earn from it. I can sell it at a discount, but sometimes because it's a collectible book, I can also sell it at a premium value. And I can even buy a virtual land or a real land that is empty. I can build a fantastic skyscraper, raising the value, like in real estate, of this land, of the building, and probably of the lands around. And I can do the same finally in the virtual world. So for us, that is really the idea of this metaverse. It's becoming an online version of the physical reality, where it is finally possible to own and monetize creation and content.
That's very interesting. So, Cristian, you're coming from a slightly different background. Your company is, revolutionizing the way we work and collaborate, but it still has, a very strong connection with virtual worlds and avatars. Enterprise customers who you are working with, they're not used to work. They're used to working together in the same physical office. How do you see them adapting to this new way of working together? And how do you think that all changes the way we collaborate in the future?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, first of all, thanks for inviting me. So yeah, it's a little bit different with enterprises. With enterprises, you kind of have to take baby steps in order to be able to transition a large amount of people and large companies who already have their own established way of working to this new paradigm shift, which is VR collaboration. And with virtual avatars, for example, it has been quite a big challenge for us and a big, long journey to getting to what our avatars look today. So I think we're at our 5th generation of avatars. Right now, our avatars are semi-realistic, going a little bit towards the more realistic side, because we found out that that's what enterprises need. But in the very beginning, we've tried a lot of different experiments. Like one of our first kind of philosophical discussions was, is it really needed to even have a human avatar? Because is the human body as we have it in the real world the ideal body which we could have in many ways? So one of the things we've built was this kind of robot which could project holograms through his hands. It could fly around, it could do a lot of different things. But from outside perspective, a lot of enterprises thought that it looked too gamey and they couldn't relate to the business enterprise. They couldn't relate it to their work, how they usually work. Moving a little bit more towards having humans which can be recognizable. And we found that this is currently what enterprises are looking for the most. So it's something like you guys from Wolf 3D are doing is what we find that enterprise are currently looking for. I don't know if this is the ideal solution, but this is, you know, because like Alvaro said, is it that our real life, you know, how we look in real life, is that more representative of us? Is that the most representative version, the best representation of us? Or are we better represented by an avatar, which we can design and which we can choose how we want it to represent us? And then when it comes to the virtual environments themselves, it's the same. If you build something completely, you know, which we think would be optimal, we wouldn't even need to have, you know, all these things like chairs or tables, or you could potentially have just a completely, you know, empty world where all the tools could be accessible when you need them, and it could look nothing like the world we have today. However, that's something which enterprises relate to in a very difficult way. So we have to find a blend in between what's realistic and people can relate to, and then combine that and make sure to add, you know, the magic which VR can bring, so that because if you go on the other extreme and if you make everything too realistic, then a lot of companies complain that you don't then why would we need to replicate everything exactly and not use the potential which VR can bring? So what we're building at MeetinVR is we're trying to build kind of realistic and relatable environments while making sure that we add, you know, the VR magic to it by, for example, creating more unlikely scenarios. Like, for example, in this universe, you know, you wouldn't be able to have a conference in such a big conference setting where you even have a windmill you can, you know, visit, you can go to the beach and so forth. So this is something where, you know, VR can bring an extra value.
All right, thank you. So coming back again to the gaming topic, Sébastien, you're coming from the gaming space. How should we adjust our way of thinking about gaming? It seems like gaming is now primarily a social experience. It seems like gaming is going to be as much a communication platform as an entertainment experience. But in your talk, you also mentioned about, like, as an end user being able to go from one game to another, but still today we have, you know, our PlayStation friends are in the PlayStation ecosystem, and Xbox friends are are in our Xbox ecosystem. How do you see this evolving over the years, and how does that affect the development of different virtual worlds and metaverses?
Yeah, I think we can approach that question at two levels. The first one is, like, as you mentioned, most of the actors in the current video game industry are really acting as centralized walled garden where every platform, like you mentioned, the Sony PlayStation or the Xbox Home, the Nintendo Switch, etc., is trying to keep and lock its users within its own universe, own branded virtual space where users can do some things, but they cannot really move from one to another of this virtual world with, for example, sort of like a digital passport or like a transportable virtual identity that allows them to really be the same person through all those different worlds. At the end of the day, it's mostly a business model matter. Like, all those companies have grown, and they have grown with success. So it's not specifically a criticism, but it's more like a way of fact. Like, this is the current state of the virtual world where every company is growing users in this closed world environment because they are trying to protect the value by making sure they retain, they engage the users. And once the users are in, they have spent hours of their time to create something. There's this psychological aspect that many of us consider, like the effort to leave the platform once you've dedicated hours, day of it, makes it less and less likely over time that you're going to leave it. So like the cost of transition becomes higher as you stay longer and longer within a platform. But if you look at, and I think in a way, we are just reproducing limitation, but like we didn't approach it from the beginning at the right angle. We remember the premise of an open internet, of open virtual worlds back in the 90s and again in the 2000s, where we said like we will be able really to break the frontiers, travel around the world easily through the internet. But the truth is like the internet is really a series of segregating virtual island where users are actually not really crossing from one platform to another. And I believe that even though we have, for example, in gaming, a video game industry that is worth $150 billion this year of revenue, for example, last year of revenue. If we were to open the barrier to allow users, like digital citizens, to travel one platform to another, to take their virtual goods with them from one platform to another, sell it, exchange it, etc., we will have much more. There will be so much more value creation. We could turn it into from 150 billion to a several $1 trillion industry because there's no more waste. And actually, the fact that you change a platform doesn't mean that you have to abandon everything, like give up all the value that sits and reside in one. And we can build new business model where instead of always trying to create content from scratch, rebuilding it from zero, making also the barrier to entry for new entrants, like who can today create a new Facebook and attract millions of users. It's going to be quite difficult. But with this absence of frontiers, the capacity of the content to belong to the user rather to the central entities, we can have, we can hopefully see a new business model emerge and new value created on services rather than just on limitation. And that's what I'm keen to see over the next decade in terms of like what is going to happen into virtual world. Like the first major platform that will start to shift its mind and embrace this idea of openness, like will probably be one of the true winners of this decade. And in terms of gaming, not just decentralized gaming, but really gaming, I've read a few articles where Fortnite is actually positioning itself as one of the first, where they started with one game, the first personal shooter, then they opened the creator mode, and now they are really moving into, all right, we have those hundreds of millions of users playing against each other or collaborating, and now we are going to offer them new activities to do, new meaningful activities. Because the thing is, like, in virtual world that are not game virtual world, I tend to think just the social interaction, coming and chatting is not enough to create a long-term engagement with the users. And that's probably what drove platforms like Second Life, etc., to not become long-term success. You need more, whether in the physical or in the virtual world, for you as a user to be engaged. It's not just about coming and chatting and that's it. You have to have some fun. You have to play games. You can play even basic game, quiz, trivia, guess games, but at least there's an action behind. There's a goal that makes you stay, not just come to meet new people all the time.
All right. But what about, like, you know, as an industry, like there's one side is like the business case, like figuring out new business models to allow this cross ecosystem experience. But is there anything else we can do as an industry to find a path towards an experience where I as a user can have this cross ecosystem experience?
Yeah, definitely. So we can see a lot of examples in terms of innovation, either in business model or in social relationship. For example, there is a Japanese platform, I think it's called Idol something. So it's at the same time using the technology of GANs, meaning generative adversarial network, and also combining with blockchain. So basically, you can generate a unique, brand new avatar for yourself, and then you can have this unique identity around blockchain technology. So nobody can steal your identity. You have this unique ID and avatar in the virtual world. So there are a lot of innovation combining different elements, as the example we're talking about, that can bring us all kinds of new entertainment experience and all kinds of new platforms. So this kind of virtual idol business is pretty mature also already in Japan, and is emerging in China. And we are wondering, so if it will become a global business, also emerging in the Western world. So if you can have the ownership of a virtual Lady Gaga, wouldn't you want to be part of it? And if you kind of have the ownership of a virtual human as the agent of this virtual Lady Gaga, you can maybe make a fortune or make a business model out of it as well. So those are the innovations that we can see in different parts of the world, and those are the only the beginning. So we are pretty fortunate that we can be at this point and to imagine, to create all these kind of potentials. So we are sitting in this virtual conference room, and then in 10 years, probably there will be a whole new experience as virtual avatars, as virtual humans in the same kind of situation as well.
Alvaro, Yingzi, you both are looking at virtual worlds and avatars more broadly than any specific like industry, like gaming industry only, or enterprise only. What are the use cases, or how do you see virtual worlds and avatars being used today? Outside of gaming, for example, or
there are a couple of use cases already. So earlier in the presentation, I spoke about IPsoft. There are a couple of companies like IPsoft. There's also Soul Machines. There's also Unique. So Soul Machines and Unique are both companies that are based and in New Zealand, I think. And their goal is to provide virtual assistants. The idea being here that you can, a lot of jobs today. So this goes hand in hand with the topic of AI replacing human jobs, because the underlying idea is that some jobs could be replaced by virtual assistants. So we're talking about things like IT desk engineers. So let's say you're in a company and you need to set up anything, or you have trouble accessing the printer, or anything that goes with very basic IT tasks. The promise is that you could actually give that to a virtual assistant. There's also training, HR, for example. If you take a company that hires hundreds or thousands of people for short contracts each year, for example, or based on seasons or specific events, you could have all the pre-screening done by a virtual assistant, basically, who will ask the questions, who will assess the candidate. So on the side of companies, a lot of these things are being prepared right now, because the idea behind this is not only that can do much more with a virtual assistant. That is, you can plug. There was this idea, for example, that was raised by IPsoft. This was before the coronavirus. They said, so there was an epidemic in the US and opiates and painkillers epidemic, right? And so hospitals need to gather information about their patients because they are giving them out painkillers, but they have trouble following each patient, right? They have trouble following each patient because, well, thousands of people go into the hospital and then leave with painkillers, and you can't possibly call them all. You cannot possibly track everyone. And so one of the ideas that was pushed by IPsoft was that you could have a virtual human who would actually play that role, a virtual human who would actually contact people before they have a painkiller prescription, and who would ask them, okay, do you have any addictions? Do you have any existing conditions, health conditions in your family, et cetera, et cetera. And this would allow, in turn, the hospital to gather data and to treat these cases in a more streamlined way. So this is one of the ideas that was pushed. And now we're thinking, so I was thinking about the coronavirus and seeing that, you know, there's social distancing and it's very difficult to treat a certain spike in patients. And here too, you could think that virtual humans, if they were operational today, could have helped a great deal. So there's an industrial aspect, and then there's a production aspect, which we discussed also a bit earlier. That is, it's virtual production, basically. So the idea that using game engines, you'll be able to create short films, series, or movies online 100%. And an idea has been going around that could basically create an actor, virtual actor, who would be used in movies, multiple movies at the same time. And this actor, you would actually own that actor, right? So it wouldn't be a person, it would be an immortal actor. Who could star in a number of movies as much as you want. And if you want that actor to be in a VR experience afterwards, then that's possible. If you want this actor to be in a mobile game afterwards, then that's possible. So I wouldn't exactly say that the possibilities are endless, but we're exploring a lot of things right now in the industry because in theory, a lot of this is a good idea. Just like in the case of virtual assistants, whether AI is working well enough, for example, that's a big question. Regarding actors, for example, whether the industry can actually leverage actors that are not flesh and bone people, celebrities that are well known and that people know are real. That's another question. Even though with virtual influencers and VTubers as well in Asia, we know for a fact that people can actually get very attached emotionally to characters who do not exist. So that's an interesting thought as well.
Cristian, Alvaro here already a little bit mentioned about social distancing, and it seems like the social distancing is forcing us almost exclusively to rely on software when it comes to social interactions and communication. It's kind of like disrupting the way we live and work right now. How does the current situation affect the development of remote work and collaboration? Do you think this work for home is a new norm, and how does VR AR experiences help?
Sure. Well, we've actually our own company has moved to VR. That's what we like to say. So we're working exclusively from home, like everybody else. But I personally have been spending in the past month between 3 and 6 hours working immersed in the virtual world. So this has been a very interesting experience for me. We're meeting with our team, but also with potential customers, potential partners, investors in virtual reality. And I've kind of figured out that I prefer to meet in virtual reality than in video calls, actually 10 out of 10 times, just because if the setup is easy to access, and you're in a quiet room and you can just put the headset on and then jump in the meeting, the feeling of being together, the interactivity which you have available, the body language, and the fact that you don't have to, you have this presence and you're able to see the other people, even though they're avatars, and you don't have to get prepared for that at all. So you can just, wake up in the morning, you look however you look, and you can just jump into the VR meeting. It makes it, it's a very interesting experience. And you're right, there's a lot of companies, people found themselves in this situation where they're kind of trapped in their own apartments. They're used to meet with their team or with their customers or any kind of business peers, and now they can't do that anymore. So they're looking for ways in which they can connect to a similar level as they used to. So they're trying to see if virtual reality can bring that experience. So with our own company, we've seen in some days 10 times more early access applications than we usually got in a regular day. And this is without any kind of paid advertising or paid ads. It's just companies specifically looking to experiment with VR collaboration. And in March alone, we had more than 550 companies from all over the world apply for early access to MeetinVR purely organically. So that's made it very tough for us to, start trying to onboard them and give them early access support. So some of my colleagues in the sales department have been having even between 6 and 12 meetings every day in the virtual world. And that's why we're very focused now to try to release an open beta of our software so that we can try to help more and more people. So there's definitely been a big boost. And I think once companies have this experience and actually, the first thing they say when they join a virtual world and they feel what it's like to be together with another person, they say it looks interesting in videos, but when you're in here and when you have this feeling and you can shake hands with somebody from across the ocean, it's a completely different thing. And once they understand the value, I think that even past this crisis, many more companies will continue having this kind of meetings.
How's your own experience working in VR versus, working from the office? How do you feel that has transitions the way you actually do the work?
Well, to be completely honest, in the beginning, we were a little bit afraid that, we have a lot of work to do and we have to transition completely. So, we weren't afraid, but, we didn't know how this is going to turn out. But in just a matter of days, we found ourselves being more productive than ever. Of course, you don't do all the work tasks in VR. But for example, we're doing our daily stand-up meetings in VR, which is very efficient. We're doing our sort of high-level strategy meetings. And the focus in these meetings is much better than in a video call. You're in there, you don't have any distractions from the outside world, and you're just much more focused on what's happening around you, much more engaged, and you feel that you're together with the other person. And right now, virtual reality is the only 100% safe way to shake somebody's hand, and it kind of helps preserve that team spirit by being together with your colleagues and hearing their voices from the direction of their avatars, being able to look around and see them, recognize them, know it's them, and feel that you're together. That's, I think, for us, it's been very, very helpful.
That's awesome. Sébastien, you a little bit already talked about gaming is developing into an economy of its own. Let's take a Sandbox, for example. It's a game with very vibrant content ecosystem. Fortnite and Roblox, they're also very vibrant content ecosystems. What are the new business models that you have seen evolving from this move towards virtual worlds and use of avatars.
Okay. And now? Ah. Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like,
Well, we aren't yet.
looks like the microphone is reacting.
Can someone mute, please? Thank you. Yes. So while we are not yet launched, there's already a few platforms that
My
are.
VR headset's still plugged in, so it prefers that microphone.
Roland, maybe can you mute? Thank you. All right. So, well, there's a few platforms that are live already. We haven't launched. We are going to launch more toward the end of the year. But it's something that, if you look at what are currently gaming virtual world and what sort of monetization they are offering. So, essentially, it translates through a marketplace where the developer is selling potentially some skins, some outfits for your avatars, and you can buy it. And potentially, they will open this to selected creator, very curated UGC, where those creators, those brands can also sell their own skin and outfit. So we're really only talking at the first level of customization. On the side of Roblox, we've seen that you can monetize some games, but it is essentially the same model as the App Store, Google Play Store, where they take a rather large commission on any revenue you generate on the platform, like 70% of any revenue. And it is very similar to just paying to access a game. But we believe that there is many more layers of monetization that become possible on those virtual worlds as soon as, the content can start being traded and the users can participate in the governance of the platform. So typically, when you own a land and you can transfer the ownership either temporarily or perpetuity to another user, you can start imagining that you can rent this land to other users to build content. You can also start creating funds, or you can start managing a finance pool where you would, for example, buy assets, buy land, and distribute them to other game creators who potentially do not want to start up front with the cost of purchasing land to still build with content and getting back a revenue share on top of any revenue that those creators will make. So in a way, we are beginning to see decentralization of content creation, not just at the level of one user is one creator is one game, but potentially communities, decentralized communities, shaping up the content of the virtual world together and sharing in a fair manner the revenue based potentially on how much each of the contributor to the decentralized community is participating, like how much they pay toward the total that is paid on that grant. We can also see in user-generated content platforms, there's always inappropriate content, copyright issues, something that are not allowed by the platform. We can see emerge new role like curators, for example, people who get paid and earned by reporting the inappropriate content, and we can do this by incentivizing. Like if you pay a fee as a creator to upload the content, and if you pay a fee as a curator to report the content, then initially the incentive are set that you're not going to commit a bad action because you already know someone else will benefit from reporting your bad action. So economically, they create a new level where people can monetize through that way. And progressively, through the use of the currency on our platform, having our own cryptocurrency, meaning almost like becoming a country with its own money, we are going to the next level where people who participate in the platform, build game, build business, are actually creating value, and that value transfers to the currency that is being used. So the way you can compare it is like, imagine I'm a country and I want to ask other country for raising funds to establish business. Well, the value of my currency will be perceived as my capacity as a country to create a thriving business environment for the citizen of my country. And I think through the use of this current monetary unit of the currency, if others are not ready to buy my currency because they feel like I'm not going to achieve that goal, I cannot create this environment, it will essentially in the currency lose value. But if by aligning the right incentive and putting in place the right measure, I can indeed generate more value for my citizens, then there will be more demand for my currency and it will be appreciated as such. So those are just premises of things that I think are quite novel in the space of virtual worlds. And we might think this is way too early, etc. I admit we are pioneers in the space, but I do believe that it can become, those decentralized economy can become the norm within 5 to 10 years. And we will be then all inclined to just to work, to play, and understand that the action we do in the virtual world can translate into a financial reward for everyone.
Do you think we'll have like 1 or 2 like major companies who are going to take over this metaverse space? It seems like the metaverse has become like a macro level goal for many tech giants like Epic Games and Facebook. Or do you believe that we'll have a multiple different virtual worlds for different occasions?
But quickly on this question, like I see like companies like Facebook, Oculus, Epic are all trying, and that's the next wave of innovation we are going to see on those platforms. But we also see that so far no major company have succeeded in establishing themselves here. So it's not just about who offers the most immersive experience. I think the disruption has to come from somewhere else. And yes, in this new industrial revolution, I believe there can be many winners, not just one, especially as the world is not just one single entity, but there's many niche markets. So potentially we'll find many platforms that just caters to the needs of specific niche based on their interest or activities or geographic location.
Alvaro, you wanted to add something here?
Yeah. So going to your question, I do think that we will see multiple metaverses. I don't think that having one only is realistic. One thing that I found interesting, for example, was that the fantasy of the metaverse was Ready Player One. And the first thing that popped up with VR that kind of had a big success was VR chat, actually. And if you look at VR chat doesn't really make any sense. There's no coherence because different people want very different things, right? Someone wants to be a human, someone wants to be a video game character, someone wants to be a meme. So everyone wants to be something very different, and everyone is looking for something extremely different. And this is basically how the internet has worked and how internet communities have worked so far. For example, a corporate environment or even this very room is very different from a gaming environment where you would hang out with your friends if you are a 12-year-old teenager. So I do think that we'll be seeing multiple worlds. So there is space for multiple worlds because each of these worlds will appeal to a specific type of environment that people are looking for, something that is either serious or more oriented towards games. Now, with that being said, I do think that a couple of companies are getting closer to this big construction that we call the metaverse that includes a number of things. So earlier, I spoke about Epic Games, who made a quite big number of acquisitions I mentioned earlier Cubic Motion. So Cubic Motion was a facial animation company. 3Letter was a digital human and rigging company. And one rumor or one idea that has been going around is that maybe the goal of Epic Games is to provide the capacity to create digital humans or to animate digital humans to the public or people using the Unreal Engine. And so basically a company like this being able to acquire the different capacities of the different elements, pieces that are required to create a metaverse definitely has a head start. But at the same time, it doesn't follow the logic that communities, in my mind, are still fairly specialized. You do not join a community for a general purpose. You will have one for work. You will have one for a specific interest. You will have another one for games. Fortnite, in a way, is presented as a metaverse, but people are not. It's a certain population, and you don't actually use it for everything. Even though we're seeing interesting experiments like concerts in game. So definitely, some companies are ahead in terms of the sheer size of what they're creating, but at the same time, there's a room for any kind of specialized interest in this matter.
I think I can say a couple of words about this as well. Like regarding your question, I do think that there will be competing VR metaverse. So when large corporations such as Facebook or Microsoft start to integrate more and more of their services and create a virtual reality version of these services, they will be interconnected and they will eventually start forming metaverses. And people will have the option to choose which metaverse they prefer to spend their times in. And some people will be concerned about which metaverse offers them the best level of privacy, because in a metaverse, privacy gets to a whole new level. Like, let's say that, right now, companies have access to our text messages. In a metaverse, companies could potentially be, bad actors could potentially be spying on you as ghosts. So like in real life, having somebody next to you, you can't see this person, he would be watching over your conversation. And of course, you don't want that. So people will be looking at this aspect. People will be looking at which metaverse offers the best experience, which metaverse offers the best tools, and so forth. I think there will probably be links between these metaverses, but as virtual reality becomes higher and higher fidelity, like if you imagine the virtual reality will at some point reach a similar fidelity to the fidelity of the real world, people will be spending very long times in this metaverse, so big parts of their lives, because everything will be cheaper to do in a metaverse and more efficient and faster than it is in the real world. So for sure, companies will want to, keep you in these metaverses for as long as possible, and they will have a great power in this way. So that's why I think it's important to start discussing about the ethics about building these metaverses early on. I think discussions like this are very relevant to start having.
All right, thank you guys. Maybe we can have a few questions from the audience as well before we move forward. Is there anyone that has a question to the panelists? Just unmute your mic and share your ideas and questions with us.
Or if you're feeling shy, you can always write them down in the chat and we can read them out loud and answer to them if you have any issues.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Raise your hand or give directly. You can press the raise hand button, which is on the bottom side in the middle of the screen.
Maybe I'll ask.
I was like, can I ask a question? So how do you think generally virtual beings will be evolving? Maybe you have talked about it, but I wasn't in the room. How do you think virtual beings will evolve after the pandemic? Now that more and more people are connected to the chat, more and more people use virtual characters during their Zoom meetings with teachers or for business work. What do you think will happen? In which direction are we heading with all of this?
So definitely COVID-19 will accelerate digital transformation in general. And when it comes to virtualization, so I can see 2 points from the enterprise point of view. People are using more virtual conferences, as we mentioned, of course, during our panel. And from the entertainment point of view, we can see the emergence of video game industry. People, even non-gamers before the COVID-19, they are trying to play either casual games or this kind of open world games. So this will accelerate the adoption of video games. And at the same time, live streaming is also another trend that is being boosted by the COVID-19. So, for example, we can see people are not only doing live streaming as themselves, as TikTok broadcasters, but they are also trying to be virtual YouTubers. They're also trying to use the democratized, for example, this kind of filters or this kind of AR filters to broadcast as virtual YouTubers. So this trend is very interesting to observe, especially if it is a global trend, and then the adoption is in an international level.
Thank you.
Maybe I can just add something to this. I think also the coronavirus has been a stress test for these concepts for virtual beings and for virtual reality, for example. The availability of headsets, of hardware, I think has been slowing down the evolution of and the fact that, for example, we can speak about in theory things that could have worked with virtual beings, but they were not ready they're not ready yet in that time. So I think it may also have an effect where people afterwards will be able to refer to the coronavirus time to say, okay, if we had had this technology, it could have been useful. So it kind of proves its usefulness, but it's been a crash test, I think, for many things, which may or may have not been ready. One of them being, I think, the availability of video game and VR hardware.
Right, thank you. I see that we have a question in the public. Thomas Bedeng, I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Would you please ask your question to the panelists?
Yeah, hi. Hope this microphone is working.
We can hear you.
Oh, that's great. So I was wondering, what do you think is the bigger hurdle for accessibility? Is it like here in Laval virtual world where you have a desktop client, but you kind of have to interface with it like a gamer with moving around and stuff like that? Or virtual reality where you can behave pretty natural, but you don't have the hardware? Do you understand that question?
I didn't hear the end of the question personally.
What do you think is a bigger hurdle for accessibility and the use of virtual beings in virtual environments like this? not being used to operating a game-like experience like it is with virtual world right now, which is a 2D game basically, or not having VR hardware accessible, where in theory behaving in the virtual world is much more natural?
I think both of them have challenges which have to be kind of addressed separately. So I think, I mean, for this kind of worlds, ideally the interaction should be simplified as much as possible, and in virtual reality the goal is to be able to get people in the virtual experience with as little effort as possible. So if you could potentially just put the headset on and be in the meeting, you know, where you're supposed to be, that would make it much more, you know, would increase the adoption very fast. For example, let's say you have a Zoom call and you want to upgrade that level of experience, and you put on the headset and that's the only thing you do, and you're transitioned instantly with that other person in the virtual world. This is, for example, a way in which, you know, and then you can get this very intuitive way of interacting similar to what you have in the real world.
I do agree with Cristian. In my opinion, we have a long list of technology innovation that were supposed to bring more immersion to the user experience, but end up didn't scale massively. So just to name a few, maybe some of you remember the Nintendo 3DS, where there was this visual effect on the screen that tried to mimic a 3D visualization without having to wear anything. But at the end, when they launched new model, they realized no one, or very few of us were using it, so they dropped the feature. We've seen it with the Google glasses, where it didn't really scale in adoption, because essentially the size of that screen on the headset and other limitations related to resolution, battery life, and the comfort of the wearability. The 3D glasses for 3D TVs. Anyone remember in the 2000s where like having 3D TVs was supposed to be the future of watching television? In the end, we are all moving up to 4K and higher 2D resolution. And VR itself is not yet a massive success. There's probably something like 10 million devices out there, but it didn't reach further, even though it was launched by Sony, PlayStation, etc. So right now, all of this is, to me, not necessarily a sign that it's going to keep failing and failing on any new innovation. It's just like, it's not yet ready, massively ready to be comfortable, so that it's as easy as wearing like just a pair of regular glasses or contact lens on your eyes, so that it's immersive without you actually realize you have to do something or wear something to be immersive. And as long as we are thinking of it has to be a headset, I'm still thinking like the answer of the user experience is not right. Do I need to wear a specific device, so I need to buy it, etc.? It's not as seamless as I mentioned, having my regular glasses or contact lenses. I don't see it make it a massive breakthrough, and the cost of adopting this new technology and the cost of creating content that fits this new access is probably still too high for the majority of users. Even companies with billions of dollars, with Magic Leap, they've taught us something amazing. Like when you watch all the marketing around Magic Leap, I was super excited about it. And then at the end, they launched the first model with a very limited view sight, like only 140 degrees. And that kind of, like the meat kind of fall out. But it doesn't mean that it will not launch as a V2 or V3 or maybe V5 until this becomes the final product that concretely match with the original vision. So it's just a matter of time and progress of miniaturization of the technology, so that we don't even really think anymore it's there, and it's as seamless as just watching your 2D screen.
Alvaro, Yingzi, do you guys have anything to add here? I think we still have a time for one additional question.
Don't be shy, just raise your hand.
All right, maybe I'll ask one question then myself. You all guys here at the panel are working with avatars in some form. What are the main challenges you guys are seeing when creating those avatars, and what are the obstacles for the industry?
If I can say what from my point of view, the obstacles are, basically everything that relates to the actual animation of the avatars. Is the biggest challenge. Creating an avatar is a challenge in itself, but animating it, and also being able to produce something that can be animated from the start. That's a pretty big issue. That is generating an avatar that already has a rig, a full functioning rig, and then there are other things that are related to that. For example, the hair simulation is very difficult. So Unreal Engine, for example, has now hair simulation. In its latest release, it's still very expensive in terms of processing power, and so people who don't have like the latest hardware, very powerful hardware, may want to still rely on hair cards, for example, instead of hair simulation. But anything that moves when your head is moving around is very difficult to do. So any process that streamlines animation is very valuable, because oftentimes you have to tweak everything by hand. You have to do some rigging by hand. You do clothing simulation, hair simulation by hand. So everything that can be automated animation-wise will take us one step further towards having realistic avatars that have lifelike expressions.
Yeah, I agree. I think also, yeah, just in being able to support performance-wise a high amount of highly realistic avatars in a space, specifically on headsets such as the Oculus Quest or Vive Focus, which are quite limited in terms of processing power, can be quite a big challenge, especially if the avatars are close to each other and you can't really afford to reduce their quality. If they're far away, you can kind of reduce their quality at a distance. But if there's many avatars in the same place which are very realistic, it's pretty hard to get it to work on weaker headsets in terms of performance power.
And also, just adding one thing, from the user side, it can also be quite difficult because if you have access to any type of hardware, if you're a studio, you have access to a lot of hardware and software that may allow you to animate your avatars. But sometimes if you're talking about consumer software, then that person doesn't have anything else but a webcam or a phone. So you need to have something that is robust, that works with a phone or a camera, or even that works with pure voice input, which is something that can be done. But the user experience is also something that we have to work on.
One thing I'm really looking forward to is being able to track facial expressions through the VR headset. So once VR headsets are able to, all of them be able to track the eye movement, then be able to detect the blinking, and then have some kind of cameras or sensors to track the lower part of the face, that will be a fantastic moment for us, at least.
All Right. It seems like we have
just one more question, if you don't mind. Piatika, again, sorry if I mispronounced that. Would you please ask your question to the panelist?
Hi, everybody. Greetings from Tallinn. Thank you. First of all, this is just my first experience with virtual conferences, and it seems to be working really nicely. So I'm myself developing virtual, human-like virtual avatars or screen characters. But I think that the biggest issue is still that was referred to the dynamics. So the movements of the characters that are still kind of sticky, or so that's something that is, in my view, currently kind of preventing full immersion. So I'm not so concerned of the movement of the hair or the little details but just the general softness of the dynamics of the movements. So, and also just want to emphasize that I feel that the more natural the context where the character is, and more important that is for the user or the participant who interacts with the character, is that the context, that context itself overrides actually the technical qualities of the avatar itself. Just a few ideas related to the topic. Thanks.
But I tend to agree that more realism is indeed better overall for the immersion. But we've seen success with very basic visual representation, like low poly graphic or even voxel graphic. Somehow people playing Legos or Minecraft are able to enjoy more being part of like largely massively multiplayer online RPG games, which tends to prove that realism is only a requirement for a certain part of the target audience, but not necessarily all of them. So that's my answer. Like, I don't see it. I think both can satisfy, and maybe the answer is not only is not there only.
Maybe I can add on top of that what Sébastien already said there. Similar to what we do, which is creating avatars of people, we've found that it really depends on the use case, where the user is using their avatars. We've also seen a lot of success with more cartoony, cartoon-looking avatars when it comes to consumer applications. But we do have other use cases where realism is preferred, like let's say virtual fashion, where you really want to see the fashion garment as realistic as possible, meaning that the avatar that you have there needs to be also as high fidelity as possible. So I think the both directions are the right way. In the end, it boils down to what is the use case where the avatar is used. Does anyone else from the panel want to add here? All right. So if there's not anything, if there's no answers left, then I think we're running out of time as well. So let's wrap it up here. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you panelists for sharing your experience, your knowledge here. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
A huge thank you to all the speakers for being here and to you, the public. I will be slowly taking a short break and we will be back at 3:20 Central European Time for the next talks. Thank you and see you later. Ça va, tu survis?
Servus.
Salut, ce țin în mână?
Tu zici că e o telecomandă în mână.
Da, știi, dar nu știu ce e asta.
Maybe that's why you looked so relaxed. You were holding that.
Hey, Cristian.
Hey, Timmu. How's it going?
Nice
See you.
panel.
Too bad
Hey,
we
Maria.
can't end here.
Sorry?
Too
Sorry?
No, I said too bad we can shake hands in here.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But you solved it in VR, so we're all good.
Yeah.
Cool. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. We're ready for another meeting in VR, and then I'm moving to Engage, where I have the Vector Investor event.
Holy shit.
So
The dream is real.
collaboration platforms in one day. It's great.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like the dream is real. It's really happening already.
And maybe this evening I'm gonna spend some time in VR chat and have a beer to be do or somebody.
Yeah, true. Oh, awesome, very good. And you have lunch coming up as well, right?
Yeah. So Maria is part of our customer test team, and Maria from Wall Street. We can try to know each other.
Cool. Awesome.
We're trying to figure out what Maria has in her hand.
Sorry?
We're trying to figure out what Maria is holding in her hand.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
laser
not ready
pointer.
for where I picked it up.
Is it the laser pointer?
Maybe.
I think it is.
Timmu,
Yeah.
I can hear you talking.
Hey, Pia.
You are in a public, right?
Oh, I guess we are.
So this is Pia. We can meet somewhere if you want. Publicly.
Yeah, absolutely. I just added you in LinkedIn. I realized we're both in Estonia.
Yes, we are.
Cool.
So we can go to the private.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to MeetingVR. Okay, nice to see you, and let's hang out.
Good meeting you all. See you
Ciao.
later. Bye.
See you. Pia?
Yes.
Is there like, do you know how it works here? Like, are there like private meeting spaces or where they are? I know that they have them, but I'm not sure where.
They are outside. There are tables that are circled.
Let's go to the tables then.
So if you go, if I can go one of them, I know where they are, and then we just push the button, go to Pia, right?
Okay, cool. Let's do that.
See you soon.
See ya.
Ça va, Lumila?
Oui, ça va et toi?
Ça va, ça va, ça va.
Tu survis?
Je survis, je survis. Mais on a fait qu'une matinée sur 3 jours, donc ça va être de l'endurance maintenant. Je vais en transversal pour attendre mes speakers qui vont faire des tests. Si tu veux qu'on check le son, je peux faire ça maintenant, comme tu veux.
Ouais, alors on fait ça maintenant. Et en fait, je me suis aussi rendu compte que donc c'est une vidéo pour le truc de